This is Brandon Spencer in Los Angeles County Superior Court. He was charged with 4 counts of attempted murder.
I'm sorry for what happened, Your Honor, but I need you life in prison.
On a Halloween night, 19-year-old Spencer attended a crowded party on the University of Southern California campus in Los Angeles. Suddenly, gunshots went off, and it was mayhem. Everyone scattered. Some ran in fear, and others hid. Reportedly, Spencer also ran, but he was stopped in a parking lot half a mile away, where he got picked up by the LAPD for questioning. A couple days later, he was charged with 4 counts of attempted murder. 4 people were injured, but fortunately, no one died.
That if you are so intent on killing someone that you're willing to shoot them and at the same time open fire into a crowd.
Prosecutors argued during the trial the shooting was a result of a feud between Spencer and a rival gang member, and that he was a documented, well-known gang member himself.
I'm not a bad person, but I made mistakes. I'm not just some gangbanger that you tried to portray me as.
Spencer maintained his innocence throughout the trial, but the jury didn't agree. Nearly 50 family members and friends packed the courtroom. As the judge read the sentence, sheriff deputies had to restrain Spencer as he banged his head on the defense table.
This is Penal Code Section 12022.53D. This is to be concurrent.
Reportedly, Brandon was sentenced to 40 years to life for 4 counts of attempted murder. This is Martice Fuller in Kenosha County, Wisconsin. On trial, he's accused of killing his ex-girlfriend and attempting to kill her mother. Reportedly, 15-year-old Martice Fuller broke into his ex-girlfriend's house armed with a handgun. When his ex-girlfriend was listening to music in her bedroom, she was shot and killed. After hearing gunshots, the mother emerged from her bedroom and came face to face with the shooter, and she was shot twice. The mother would survive the shooting and identify Martice Fuller to the police. Fuller pleaded not guilty, but the jurors disagreed.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree intentional homicide.
After the jury found Fuller guilty on 3 counts, he showed what appeared to be emotion for the first time on trial. During Fuller's sentencing, he continued to maintain that he is innocent, and moments before he is sent to prison for the rest of his life, he put together a statement for the courtroom.
Judge, Mr. Fuller's prepared a statement that he asked that I read on his behalf.
Okay.
Martice writes, I wanted to write this giving my sincerest apologies to this family I once shared time and love with. Truthfully, I am sorry about the pain you've all suffered through, but more importantly, the loss of my ex-girlfriend, Kaylee, that I loved too. But I have to continue to stand innocent because I am. And I hope you all can eventually see in your hearts that I am not the person the media has made me out to be.
Now, the judge will deliver the sentence.
I don't have any ability to trust that you will never commit these acts again. So in the interest of protecting the public, acknowledging the seriousness of these acts, the court orders that on count 1, you are sentenced to life in prison without eligibility for extended supervision.
As Fuller is being sentenced to spend the rest of his life behind bars, it appears he's completely unfazed. This is Rachel Shoaf and Shelia Eddy, who are both in court today for the murder of their friend when they were only 16 years old.
Their scheme was to hide knives on their bodies and to attack Skylar at an agreed-upon moment.
In Star City, West Virginia, Shoaf and Eddy were friends with 16-year-old Skylar Neese. Reportedly, Shoaf and Eddy decided they didn't like Neese anymore, so they planned to kill her.
Shelia Eddy and Rachel Shoaf carried out that plan. Together they stabbed and killed Skylar.
After Shoaf's confession, both teens were arrested. Shoaf agreed to plead guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for her cooperation in the case.
I'm so sorry. I don't know if there's a proper way to make this apology because there are not even words to describe the guilt and remorse that I feel each day for what I've done. I hurt the Neese family and those who love Skylar. I hurt my parents and shamed my family. May God bring eternal peace to Skylar and the entire Neese family.
After securing a plea deal, the judge now gives Shoaf her sentence.
Rachel Shoaf, it is the sentence of the court that you be imprisoned in the West Virginia State Penitentiary for a period of 30 years.
But she will have the possibility of parole in 10 years. And now for Eddy.
It is the sentence of the court that you be imprisoned in the West Virginia State Penitentiary for the rest of your natural life. That sentence is technically with mercy, which makes you eligible for parole after you have served 15 years.
This is Mackenzie Shirilla. She's a 17-year-old who was found guilty of murder for causing a car crash that killed her boyfriend and his friend.
Mackenzie decided death was the ultimate goal that day. This was not reckless driving. This was murder.
Shirilla's boyfriend, Dominic Russo, and his friend, Davian Flanagan, were in the car when she crashed into the side of a commercial building outside of Cleveland, going 100 miles per hour. Both men were pronounced dead at the scene, and Shirilla survived. Prosecutors argued that the teen had a toxic relationship, and Shirilla had made violent threats against her boyfriend.
Threatened his property? She threatened to break into his house?
Correct.
Reportedly, she crashed her car on purpose because she wanted to kill her boyfriend, and that his friend was just collateral damage. The prosecutor said the intent was obvious upon seeing that video, that there was only one goal.
You see her driving very calmly and making the right turn, and then all evidence indicates she immediately put the pedal to the metal and drove straight into a building at 100 miles per hour. I think those really demonstrated to us that this was no accident.
And a few days before the crash, she allegedly took the same route to plot the crime. This is where the judge now finds her guilty.
Count 1. Finds the defendant, Mackenzie Shirilla, guilty of murder, to wit Dominic Russo.
She now stands up to be placed in handcuffs as she continues to tear up.
Count 2. Finds the defendant, Mackenzie Shirilla, guilty of murder, to wit Davian Flanagan.
Shirilla now has a moment to speak before her sentencing.
The families of Dom and Davia, I'm so deeply sorry. I hope one day you can see I would never let this happen or do it on purpose. I wish I could remember what happened. I'm just so sorry. I'm heartbroken.
There was no medical condition that caused this as an accident. There was no mechanical failure of the car. A failed suicide attempt is not a defense to murder. There's a very good likelihood, Mackenzie, that you will spend the rest of your life in prison. She's sentenced on count 1, 15 years to life. Count 2, 15 years to life, to be served concurrent to each other.
The judge just sentenced her to 15 years to life in prison. This is Aiden Fucci, who pled guilty in court for the murder of his classmate when he was only 14 years old.
Having fun in a cop car.
Yep. Fucci was classmates with a 13-year-old girl from Patriot Oaks Academy in St. Johns County, Florida. Fucci stabbed her 114 times. Her dead body was later recovered from the woods. After Fucci was arrested, he can be seen in the back of the cop car taking Snapchats. Now this video shows Fucci and his parents in the interrogation room.
The Snapchat that you did, this number is smart.
Like you're all over the internet, Negro. This is serious.
This is very serious.
This is no joke. This is your whole life. Your whole life.
And ours.
And ours.
A video from prosecutors showed Fucci and the girl allegedly walking together right before she was murdered. Then about 90 minutes later, the video shows Fucci allegedly running away from the area where the body was found.
114 stab wounds, 49 defensive wounds, 35 wounds to the head and neck, 29 to the back and shoulder, and 6 fatal wounds.
After Fucci pled guilty to first-degree murder, the judge now hands down his sentence.
Having entered a plea of guilty to the crime of first-degree murder, I sentence you to life in prison. Because of your age, you are eligible for review of the sentence in 25 years.
After Fucci was sentenced, he stood still with a little movement. This is Dylan Schumaker. In a Buffalo, New York courthouse, he's at his sentencing after being convicted of second-degree murder. At age 16, Schumaker was babysitting his girlfriend's child when she went to work that evening. He was inside a Springville home that he shared with his parents. Later that evening, Schumaker beat the 23-month-old child, and a result of his injuries, that young child died. Dylan Schumaker would later be arrested and charged with the murder of the toddler along with child abuse charges.
Mind your own business.
Schumaker was reportedly trying to get the child to stop crying, and he never wanted to hurt the child or for him to die. But the jurors didn't buy it, and Schumaker was convicted of second-degree murder. Now, watch closely as Schumaker enters the courtroom. Before he could even get set up behind the defense table, he starts crying and telling everyone how sorry he is.
I
didn't mean to kill Austin. Ashley, I really didn't. I really think I did that. I didn't mean to hurt him.
When Schumaker was awaiting his trial, he had a phone call with his mother, and the conversation ended up being recorded. Now, listen to the judge on what Schumaker said to his mother.
In a phone call to your mother from the holding center, you stated, and I got a quote from the court reporter, "I am a 16-year-old blonde. Probably all I have to do is cry in front of the jury, and they're going to feel sorry for me."
I can't take back what was done. I wish I could. I would give my life for Austin.
Schumaker was later sentenced to the maximum punishment.
That you be sentenced to an indeterminate term of imprisonment, which will have a maximum of life. The court hereby imposes a minimum sentence of 25 years.
But that sentence was later modified to 18 years to life. This is Seandell Jackson. He's in the Milwaukee County Courthouse at his sentencing for being convicted of murdering a university student. Reportedly, 18-year-old Jackson and his friend were hunting for victims when they saw Potter leave a bar. Nathan Potter, the 21-year-old victim, was a college student at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. They stalked him, accosted him, and demanded money. When Jackson learned that Potter didn't have any cash, Jackson shot him, which killed him. Officials said Jackson fled to Mississippi the day after Potter's murder. Jackson's uncle reportedly tipped off the police on his whereabouts, where he was arrested. When he was on trial, you can see Jackson make gestures towards the victim's family. And when he was escorted out of the courtroom, you can see him smiling at the family. Now, moments before the sentencing, Jackson's mother told the court she first heard about the killing on TV.
When I saw it on the news, I even cried. I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine what that mother is going through. I never had a clue that my child had anything to do with it. My son is not a monster. He is not a monster.
Jackson now apologizes for what he has done.
I apologize for my behaviors. Please don't take my life from me.
When the judge announced life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, Jackson has an outburst. As the deputies restrain Jackson, you can hear one of Jackson's family members scream to the victim's family. When Jackson is serving life in prison without parole, his friend pleaded guilty to acting as the lookout and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. This is Willard Miller and Jeremy Goodale, and at just 16 years old, they are both charged for the murder of their high school Spanish teacher. Reportedly, it was over a bad grade.
We then moved her off of the trail, where I then struck her, and she died as a result.
Miller and Goodale went to Fairfield High School in southeastern Iowa. Nohema Graber was the Spanish teacher at the school, and Miller was one of her students. After he received a bad grade from Graber, he and his friend Goodale planned to kill her.
We discussed a general plan. I'll stand up here, look out, wait for Ms. Graber to show up.
Graber went for her usual walk at Chattawaka City Park. The boys knew that as they stalked her and they waited to ambush her.
Here she comes, and she walked by and hit her in the back of the head, and then I said, we should make sure she's dead. So we hit her a couple more times.
They then dragged her into the woods and beat her to death with a baseball bat.
What was the plan after that? There wasn't any plan beyond that. Like hide the body, bury the body, save the body. At that time, we were going to hide the body. I guess in our arrogance, we kind of assumed that nobody would ever find her.
Not long after, both boys were arrested. Court documents allege that the witness who knew Goodale showed law enforcement Snapchat messages that showed Goodale and Miller's involvement in the murder. One of the Snapchat messages saying, "Point of view, you're my Spanish teacher, and this is the last thing you see," followed by, "Time to hide a body." Jeremy Goodale would later plead guilty and testify against his best friend Miller.
I understood that he had the intent to kill Mrs. Graber.
What is your plea to murder in the first degree, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
This is the moment that Goodale gets to speak before his sentence.
I've had time to think on what to say, and I'm sorry, truly sorry. Every day I wish I could go back and stop myself. I can't comprehend losing a loved one in such an awful way.
And now the judge hands down his sentence.
The defendants shall be sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after 25 years.
Now for Miller. This is him apologizing before he receives his sentence.
I'd like to take this opportunity to wholeheartedly accept responsibility for the role that I've played in the murder of a human graver. To the family, I'm sincerely sorry for the distress that I've caused you and the devastation. And I ask that I'm given a chance, and I don't want to be institutionalized. I don't want to be in so long that I forget about what matters, where I come from, and I look forward to getting through this.
And now the judge has some final last words.
The defendant, Willard Noble Chaden Miller, should be sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after 35 years.
Miller seems to be completely unfazed.